Hi, good evening, everyone, and thanks to the organization for inviting me today. I'm going to talk about IoT to promote transparency and democracy, which is a pretty bold title. So first of all, let's set expectations. I pretend to be just inspiring today, and maybe just to give you some topics for the drinks afterwards, so that you can discuss about all the things. And before we start, I'd like to give you some background on what we are doing in Libelium related to smart cities and to the topic. So this is the way that we understand the world, a world full of sensors, cities that are going to be more efficient, more livable, secure, and resilient thanks to technology. And if you look at all those applications here, you will find very easily that all of them have always three elements in common. You have sensors, you have communication protocols, and also cloud systems. And that fastly goes into a big problem of interoperability, which is the main focus of Libelium. So that's exactly what we are doing here at Libelium. We are enabling the communication between any kind of sensor to any kind of cloud platform using any kind of communication protocol through this value chain here. So before we start into the deep discussion of the technology and the democracy, let's start easy with the examples that are working today and in smart cities. So this is the first example in the city of Trondheim and Bergen in Norway. The municipality here wanted to monitor the air quality and to detect and control the gas emissions to get feedback on the way to mitigate them, and also to comply with regulatory regulations, which is exactly the same goal of this project, with the difference that in this case, instead of locating sensors in streetlights or in fixed places, what they are doing is putting them on vehicles so that they are collecting all the sensing information and creating a real-time map. We can also save money thanks to this kind of technology. So this city, for example, municipality is using parking sensors in taxi stops to determine whether it's necessary to have all of them or just fewer than the ones that they have. If they don't need all of them, they can create more parking spots and increase the income of the municipality by using them as a blue zone or as a payment parking spot. In this case, what we are doing is it's also trying to save money by saving salt, the salt that you need to throw in the highways when they are ice, and also to optimize the greater routes, and also to optimize the use of the greeters itself, and also to provide more security to the drivers by monitoring the weather conditions. We can also work with water suminister in cities. In this case, this is a very ambitious project in Spain, by the way. And here they are monitoring water leakages, trying to forecast water demand, and at the same time, they are monitoring water quality. And finally, this is another example where the user is at the center. So in this case, in the airport of Chile, what they are doing with our technology is to try to improve the user experience by enhancing the processes and terminals, and also reducing the waiting times. So now that we've talked about what's working today and things that are working right now, let's talk about the risk of all the technology. And we have a very recent example this weekend with the WannaCry virus that really expose the risk of or dependency on connected devices. It not only, it didn't only affect it to more than 200,000 computers in the world, but also affected to critical systems like FedEx deliveries stop in the whole US, railway ticket machines in Germany totally stopped down, and many other things. And it makes me think that even if vendors are more obsessed with security, which we are, and developers are more focused in security, as the number of devices increases exponentially, the risk will do exactly the same. And we are driving to a very, very high figure of connected devices to the internet. But having so many devices connected to the internet is not, and compromise them, it's not the only risk. Because what happens if we are accessing to private information? You remember this? How many of you were angry when you learned the NSA was using our day-to-day tech applications to spy on us? Were you angry or didn't care? How many of you were scared? And how many of you stopped using Google, your Facebook account, Yahoo email services? Please stand up so that everyone can look at a principled man. And so far, the only person I knew was this lady here that switched from using iPhone to BlackBerry from a Canadian company to protect her privacy. So my question to you is, do you have to be the German chancellor to be concerned about a privacy invasion? Because it looks to me that privacy is second thing, goes second if you can get something in exchange. Here's a business that's an insurance company with a telco, and they are offering you a premium on your insurance car depending on the way that you are driving. So it not only collects the speed and the way that you are driving, but also where are you going and when, your personal habits. In exchange, you will get a rebate on your premium, and it seems that it's pretty clear what you are disclosing when you are signing the contract, which maybe it's not the same in the next example. This is not a computer. This is a TV. It comes with a camera, microphone, and 46 pages of privacy policy. Who reads that? Absolutely nobody. But you should, right? Because it says really scary things like, don't say anything confidential in front of your TV. You might be recorded. That's real. And you have all the resources, all the links here. So I've heard people complaining about the first example with the car, with the big brother thing watching us. But how many have stopped buying a smart TV for a privacy issue? I think nobody. And that goes to my point, which is that convenience trumps privacy. And that's something that we need to be honest with ourselves when we are talking about privacy. And even before, now we are talking about information, but even before we are talking about information, we are just talking about data. We are generating a lot of data. So for example, Twitter is generating 80 gigabytes per day of data, which seems to be a lot. Nothing compared to this gas turbine engine, which is generating 520 gigabytes per day on blade. And there are 20 blades in each one. So the question here is, when does data become information? When does all these connected bytes become something that we can really use? I've got a friend who, he's a runner, and he lives in one of the cities that are most outstanding in publishing public data from the municipality. So one day he was training, and he wondered about the air quality of the city. So he went into the internet and discovered all the data the municipality was publishing. But that was not enough. So he needed to spend 3 days researching scientific papers and European Union directives just to find out that many of the air quality parameters were outside the thresholds. So it means that open data is not enough. It's really difficult. We are so exposed to information, so exposed to data, and we cannot be experts on every single subject. That the concern here and the danger here is that over-information can be the new way of actually hiding information. So, because giving all this data with no context at all, it's totally useless. And even if we are given the context, sometimes it's difficult to find out what do we think or what to do about that. And this is an article on driverless cars ethics. That's really fun. It's about a survey made to potential users of driverless cars. And most of the people prefer utilitarian cars that were prioritizing pedestrian lives and not the driver's ones. But the same people were saying that they were less likely to buy one of the cars if they were programmed according to that algorithm. So context is not enough. And makes me think that maybe it's never about technology. It's always about the usage that you are doing with that technology. Like, for example, drones. Have you seen this? Of these companies making some no-fly zones for their drones in some areas of Syria and Iraq? Well, a drone is a drone. It can be used as a weapon or can be used to deliver humanitarian aid by the same people and at the same region, right? So I think that's the best example. It's not about technology. It's always about the usage we do. And by the way, do you think that these drones should be paying Social Security, as some people are suggesting to do with robots? Will finally robots take out all our jobs and employments? We will be all day, hopefully, in the beach, or not? We wish, right? Well, there's a big debate right now about this, but a recent study by Deloitte shows that technology has been a great job-creating machine in the past, more than just cutting down jobs. It's proven that technology increases demand, makes more efficient processes, and stimulates the generation of new business models and new jobs, which we are seeing today with data scientists, for example. And I think this is a very good example, the automotive industry. Maybe it's one of the most robotized industries right now, and the use of technology in this in the car factories has not only risen the industry in general, but also increased the competitive of the sector while increasing jobs in the overall sector in the world, and which is more important for me, making cars more and more cheaper so that more of us can afford to buy one. And speaking of affording technology, can you think in something more close to democracy to make technology affordable to everyone? Because maybe not all of us need a sports car, right? I don't need anyone. But all of us need access to things like healthcare, for example. And that's something that today, 2 billion people in the world cannot afford. 3.3 billion people in the world are living in rural areas which are either with limited access or with a very late access to a hospital area. And I think that's healthcare is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing in the world right now and should be addressed by increasing technology. That's one of the things that should be solved. We should be able to solve things like that. This is a project that we've been working for in the past 2 years. What you are seeing here, it's the replica of an emergency observatory unit, except that it costs 100 times cheaper, and it fits on a suitcase. So you can take it and visit rural areas, go for tier 1 medical checks with people, or just make it available as affordable medical equipment. And one of the cooperations we are doing is with the Infectología Dominican Foundation, which is trying to help mothers in the Dominican Republic and to give them, first of all, more education on how to take care of the babies, how to take care of themselves while they are pregnant, like me. And one of the problems they are facing is the problem of preeclampsia, which is the hypertension that you may have when you are pregnant. And that's very easily to detect when you have the right tools. And if you don't detect that, both mother and baby can die. And by the way, the Dominican Republic ranks 3rd in mortality in the whole Latin America for both the mothers and the babies. So this is an example on how to make technology available for people and how to give them more democracy in some kind. And it's not only about making technology available, it's also about making data and information available and share that with people, which is the case of transparency. This is Fukushima in 2011 during the radiation leak. You remember lots of media coverage of all kinds of things, like this one. So radiation was detected in California across the Atlantic. And as a result, one of the companies selling anti-radiation pills ran out of stock. So convenient. And that led us to wonder who owns the information that we are receiving and that we are consuming. Governments, big corporations, who is behind the curtains. And most important, what are their interests? So we decided to do something to take back some transparency and some access to independent data to citizens without cooperating with any external organization. So we put in place this open source project to create a personal radiation meter. So that was something it was done with open hardware. We publish all the schematics so that anyone could replicate. And we just send samples to citizens in Tokyo, in universities, hackerspaces, just to give them a tool. And what happened a couple of weeks later was really amazing, because everyone with one of those Geiger meters was publishing in a spontaneous cooperation way all the information on this platform. Now it no longer exists. It's called Safely, if you are following the company. And keeping an independent, real-time, and transparent radiation map of the area. So those that are skeptical and are thinking about the data integrity, what happens if anyone can inject data into the map? My answer is Wikipedia. The more people watching out the information, the more accurate it will be. And in fact, there were people watching out the same data, counting on professional Geiger meters, contrasting the information and saying if that data was accurate and that one was not exactly, and the errors that could be in those data. So now at the end of this talk, can you imagine a city, a municipality sharing as much information as possible in an open data format, allowing citizens to audit that information, and allowing them as well to contribute with their own data sets to the general data sets to make more rational decisions and why not, more democratical and distributed decisions on how to manage the city. I think that's the highest concept behind the IoT. And I'm sure that if we are able to overcome all those risks, the biggest legacy of the IoT will be more democracy and more transparency. And if you still prefer to stay away of all those things, if you think that the risks are not compensating you, you can always go to one of those villages in Spain. There are many of them offering a job, free housing, and of course, no internet. So thank you.
The Internet of Humans has made us more democratic, but it has also been, I mean, just look at the last US election cycle, a lot of fake news, a lot of stuff that could have been like prevented from a more centralized system. Won't there be the same risks with Internet of Things? What prevents malicious sensors from spreading bad information and spreading disinformation to our population?
Well, that's one of the biggest problems, and now two huge companies like Google and Facebook. And by the way, I just read yesterday that the main source of news for millennials, it's Facebook. So most of us are millennials here. It says that if we are on the average, we are not reading any newspaper and any other blog than Facebook. And both companies have committed to fight fake news. How? I don't know. Looking for the source or trying to making algorithms to contrast with as many sources as possible, ranking the sources as trustable and non-trustable. I think that's another one of the biggest risks and the biggest battles in the future. And still I think that the problem is not detect if something is true or not, because once that's out, it's there. You don't have access to talk to everyone that have read the piece of news and say, hey, by the way, that wasn't true. So I think that goes in line with what I was saying of we are so over-informed, we have so much access to the information that's a new way to hiding information. And maybe in the future, because now journalism is changing and newspapers are trying to raise income and create new revenue streams from everywhere. Well, maybe in the future we will go back to the trustable paying systems for a piece of news. I don't know, but that's something that definitely we'll see. Great. Okay.
Very good talk. Thank you very much. Really makes you think. You made a point during your talk about that there's just so much information. I guess it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. If right now you said corporations are the ones that and governments are the ones that control all of this information. How would we make it such that individuals can take advantage of all of this information if we make everything available? Is there a way to kind of condense it and present it to people so that they can actually support their own decision making?
Well, that's something I always raise when we are in conferences of how to fund smart cities. Because so far, the answers are always, is it a public investment or is it PPP, corporation, public-private companies? And I think that maybe users and citizens could be an alternative. In the case of Fukushima, the citizens that were not getting a sample were buying it. So people were spending their own money to monitor something and to offer the data to the rest of the community, contributing to a general map and just in the good of being able to access to the rest of the data sets. So I think that when we are talking about how to make more distributed both the funding and the knowledge and the surveillance of the knowledge, maybe one formula could be to make compliant devices with the system of the municipality and offer tax breaks, for example, to citizens willing to pay for one of them and to put them on their balcony. So, and make it so open so anyone could offer, could design their, if he or she is an engineer, could design their own meter and use it to extract data from them, from the media and inject that into the general network. The only problem there is the accuracy of the information, because one thing that we're seeing with projects like this project in the Netherlands called the air quality egg was using non-calibrated gas sensors to monitor the air quality, which is just totally useless. So we still need to meet the commoditization point for technology and for sensors especially to allow citizens to afford accurate sensors, not only sensors in general. And if everyone is contributing to the data set, I think that'd be the best way to make it a more participative way to create a sensor network.
We do have time for more questions.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
So, during your speech, you mentioned something like we are living in some kind of Big Brother because all these sensors, let's say, can get a lot of information about our lives, our environment, the weather, cars, all these kind of things. So, and these kind of things can scare us, okay, because we don't know how people are going to use this kind of information. My question is, do you know if there is some kind of regulations, some kind of standard, some kind of organization behind us in order to regulate and to say, okay, this information could be public, information could be shared, this kind of information can be, is not a information that could be put in network and can be public in order to protect our privacy. Not all the things that we are watching and we are talking with the guys around us is something that we would like to make public.
Well, there are two battles there. One is the battle of regulation, and the other one is the battle of real, let's call it evangelization. So in terms of regulation, for example, if you go to the US, there's absolutely nothing. In Europe, you have more strength regulations, but they are very, very limited. So it only says that your data needs to be stored in European servers that are under the jurisdiction of the European Union. And as a result, US government cannot go to Amazon servers in Ireland and say, give me all the data here, I'm the government. That's protected, and that happens in the US. But apart from that, the problem is that technology is evolving so fast and laws are so slow that the gap, I don't think it's gonna get closer. I think it'll be even bigger. But think about that in another way. We've all had loyalty cards for supermarkets for years. And nobody was, the only thing new about privacy is that now we are aware of the lack of that. But there's been always a lack of that. Problem is that now we can even process and massively all the data to extract more things about you. But we've been selling very, very cheap or personal data, consumer habits, how many members in our family we were, the habits we have in exchange of, I don't know, a free coupon for something like that. So I think that the answer will definitely not go through regulation, but through the real thought of the users of not using those services that are abusing of your privacy.
This is not a question, it's just that I disagree.
Okay.
It's true that Europe's strategy is basically building a big corpus of laws, right? That will be spread throughout all the countries in agreement. But it's not that in US there's nothing. On the contrary, I believe US is even more robust because what happens there is that companies are scared of what citizens can do legally. So it's more dynamic, it's more adaptable, but companies could be sued very easily if they do things that is perceived to hurt citizens' privacy. So in a way, I personally believe the US system is more democratic and is closer to your final comment. Companies have to be really careful, whereas in Europe, if they find a crack in the laws, they're gonna take advantage of that. So
well,
I think US is even.
You know the Green Button initiative by the Obama administration? That's I think, a very good idea, but shows that the companies were doing things without the approval of the users. That was an initiative to publish, to make electricity companies use kind of an open data format to publish all the electricity data from the users and provide it to third-party companies. So let's say that there is a company that wants to design an app to optimize your power consumption in your house, and they just needed to sign up to get your data. So, and I think that's a good idea, meaning that I'm in favor of that, because first time I heard about that project, I raised my hand and say, that's really scary. Someone could study your electricity habits and know when you are in your house and when you're not, and use that to kidnap your kids. And the person presenting said, and if you put you pay someone in a car in front of your car as well, which is true. So it's not about it's not because of the technology, because we can face threats. That's a good idea and can create and generate business models, allow new companies, new startups to rise, but that was done without the permissions of the users. So maybe that was because they were selling very well the idea to the users of you could potentially benefit from one of those apps that we are going to be developing for you, but that was not optional. And I'm not sure if in Europe that would have been the same.